News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Welcome to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning.
And I'm Allan Gilbreth with darkoakmedia.com.
And I'm Maximilian, along for whatever ride these fools have for today.
It's going to be, you better strap in, buddy.
And buckle up.
Absolutely. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And you can also go to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page. Definitely do that anyway. Give us a like. Check out all the action over there, including I've already posted the must-have item of the week, which, Allan, I feel like some of our must-have item of the weeks, we say this is the item, we discuss it, we smile, and we move along. I feel like this one might provoke conversation. I mean, it might be thought-provoking and a little more, I don't want to say interesting, but a little bit more wide-ranging implications, let's say.
All right, well, I'm going to repeat it again. Go to Facebook, look up Tool Talk Radio, and get in on this. Go ahead and text us something about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I've posted, Allan, what we're going to be discussing in Great Moments in Building History. I discussed a fascinating, I posted a video because this week, Allan, we are going to talk about the Statue of Liberty.
I am so ready for this one.
This one, you talk about, really, you could do a whole show on this. This is really interesting.
You could do a whole series of shows on just this one building.
And right out of the gate, I'm just going to say, if you want to research this, just be selective in the videos you choose. You can find some really interesting ones, and then you find these really fringe ones that are telling you all about the weird, I don't know what, just stuff I didn't like, probably made by a bunch of, I don't know, whatever. But anyway, if you want to, we're going to talk a lot about the construction. That's, this is Tool Talk Radio. This is sort of.
There is a lot of construction and artistry that had to come together to make this happen.
Right. Our buddy Larry Brown from Brown Refrigeration is finally showing up, Allan.
Yay!
The guy's probably going to be crawling in here, worn out and exhausted.
Did he bring Mrs. Brown?
That's the question. I don't know if he's ever going to get Mrs. Brown in here. She's probably knows better.
Oh, Eve, little face.
Allan, this is interesting. Nature-inclusive architecture. I feel like I want to get Larry in on this conversation. This is something you brought to us.
I did.
That I think this is sort of the future of urban design, I guess we're talking.
It is, once again, the past and the future.
Right.
The stuff in the middle, but the past and the future.
Yeah. We have other things, and I'm hesitant to. Okay, Allan, we've got pages
such
of
a
lists
full boat today
that I'm hesitant, but I do have some disappointing news for somebody. So, okay, you guys. So we had like I said, I've got pages of notes here, and a lot of this, Larry Brown's very timely because let's face it, HVAC. It's almost like we're in drought conditions.
Yeah.
We need to make sure we have plenty of time to unpack that. So, and also I'm formulating Allan, this is going to be an epic salute, but I'm not quite finished. I was doing all the research, and I said, we don't want to just shoehorn this in. So this week we're skipping our salute of the week in lieu of jumping into our great moments of building history, folks. So if you can't live without your salute of the week, this is the perfect time. Just go, Allan, they can listen to our past shows.
Absolutely. Just pop over to tooltalkradio.com, and you can go to either YouTube or Spotify, and feel free to just tote us around with you. And if you're really feeling it, you can jump in there and binge literally years of material.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all coming at you today, and boy, it's going to be chock full. So, Allan, I think we better.
Let's dive.
We better get to it, my friend.
And now, great moments in building history.
All right, Allan, I want to kick this off on the right tone because I know your tendency. Well, you're very well versed with how it's constructed. You're also probably one of those guys that enjoys some of the backstory that I want to talk about how it was built, but I also want to talk about what the purpose is. I mean, everybody knows the Statue of Liberty. That's one of those you probably learned about it in school. I just want to give you a personal anecdote for my family. So my mom was born in Tipperary. I think I've told you this before. Right. So she came over on the boat, just like now the way it was in those days. My grandfather had to come over first to get him situated. So she lived in an orphanage with her sister for a period while he was getting things set up. And then she came over in 1939. the world was a little this was literally
tough.
right before
Yeah.
World War II.
Yep.
She got out of there just in time. Well, she's, Tipperary, I think the tallest building she'd ever seen in her life was like 3 stories. You talk about whatever. So she's an Irish kid coming over. She's 9 years old. And she said that when she was, when the boat was approaching New York, she was out on the deck. And she said the building started to sort of, based on the horizon and everything, the buildings almost looked like they were rising out of the water. She said it terrified her. She said it was like monsters. It was a very freaky situation. And plus, she'd never been on the ocean before, for a ship. And then she was feeling very intimidated. And then they pulled up to the Statue of Liberty. And she said suddenly there was this comfort feeling. She felt comforted. She felt welcome. And she couldn't take her eyes off the Statue of Liberty. There was something so inspiring and so just welcoming. And that's sort of its purpose. And exciting. And so that was her encounter with the Statue of Liberty. And I never forgot that. The image of monsters rising out of the water was sort of interesting. But Allan, that's sort of its purpose. It's the gateway, because a lot of people that came to America came that way. And the nuts and bolts, it was given to us by France. They built the statue, we built the pedestal, right? All right, don't start. Okay, this is the basic.
That's the gift card version.
Okay, whatever.
Edward de la Boulaye was a massive supporter of Abraham Lincoln.
Right.
And he wanted to give a gift to the common law of free peoples.
Okay.
He was a pretty exceptional guy. I mean, he traveled all over the world and went to the Middle East, came to America, traveled all over Europe, and finally, he kind of hooked up with Frederick Auguste Bardolet and some other guy I'm going to mention here in a minute. And they came up with this amazing idea on how to build a giant statue.
Frederick Auguste, I'm just going to call him that. He was a sculptor. Basically, there was the concept, and the concept was we're going to do this giant statue. And we should say the statue itself is 10 stories tall.
Yeah, she's not small.
And then the base is about another 10 stories.
Yes.
So you're looking at the size of about a 20-story building. So, and back in the day, keep in mind, this is 1870. They said that they were working on it from about 1870, but the construction went from about 1875 to 1884. It was finally, then they took it apart. It was 350 individual pieces, and then they brought it over and dedicated it on 1886. But there was a lot of symbolism. The 7 points on her crown represent the 7 continents. It was built for the Roman goddess Libertatis. So what I thought was interesting is this is not just, you could say it's for America, but it's also it's a worldwide aspiration. Liberty is for all mankind, because that's why. So there was a couple other little things in there, like you would notice at the bottom, there's broken shackles at the bottom to dedicate for the end of slavery and the end of the Civil War and all that. But the symbolism is beautiful, but we're probably going to lean heavily on the construction now, Allan, because what's fascinating is it started Frederick Auguste Bartolodi. Okay, this is Frederick, the sculptor. He started with the first statue, the first prototype was a statue that was, I think it was made of clay, and it was only about 4 feet tall, right?
Yes.
And they kept scaling it up.
And then you went, okay, we got
that
it.
works.
We got it all kind of figured out.
Right.
And again, now keep in mind, all of these guys had been up and down the Suez Canal and had seen Egyptian statues.
Okay.
So they were like, okay, so if you can build a statue like that, so here's how we're going to do it. So they go back to France, and they're sitting around and they're sculpting, and they got the first one pretty good.
Right.
And then, of course, they scale it up. All right, now that looks pretty good. They scale it up again, and then harsh realities begin to set in.
You start to have to deal with architecture.
Weight.
Right,
and just the cost of materials. Because keep in mind,
10 stories
this
tall.
is a grand idea of, and it's hard for us to picture today, but let's go back to 1865, and we had steel.
Right.
But steel was for railway tracks, was big and it was heavy and it was really, really durable. And so they were looking for other metals, and they were like, copper. Copper would be great. It's shiny. It's amazing.
You know what, for the outside.
It lasts for years. Well, just as a building material.
Oh, I didn't know you could build out of copper. I thought it was too soft.
Exactly. Then they discovered, well, it's going to crumple under its own weight.
Right.
Even though it's so much thinner and softer.
Al, I'm sorry, you just made me think of something, because I didn't think about this part. You talked about harsh realities kicking in. Okay, to me, one of the biggest challenges with the Statue of Liberty is the fact that she's got one arm extended and she's holding a torch.
Yes.
It would have been much easier to have a statue if her arm was down, and so that alone, for one thing, it would make it lopsided. It would, I don't know. I mean, yeah, did they ever design anything without her arm?
Actually,
because it wouldn't have been as inspiring as what we got, but I'm wondering what they played around with.
The actual original drawings, the original prototypes that they actually made in Egypt were taking advantage of the fact that some Egyptian statues had people elevating an arm and leading forward, and some statues, even like from the movie like Lord of the Rings, where you got a statue with its hand outstretched.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
structurally, whoever designed that.
They were looking back, and if you could do this in ancient Egypt 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago, we're going to figure it out today.
There was something in the air back then, Allan, because we talk about this, the Industrial Revolution. It wasn't just that there was a bunch of smart people. There were people with that can-do attitude, because who would undertake this? I mean, this is nuts.
You got to be kind of a crazy person.
Right.
But welcome to the marriage of art and engineering.
Yep.
When you get, and this is where I get to say a little thing to all my artist buddies out there. If you're truly an artist, you have to be a little bit crazy. Because you're going to push. You're going to push to do something new or different. And some of these ideas come along. And this is where we're going to throw in Mr. Eiffel.
There you go.
Alexandri. Because he, at this time, had a really bizarre idea. And that was that the shape of steel was more important than the weight of steel.
Is this where we start talking about I-beams and things like that?
Exactly. So, like, all right. So
sorry, Alan. Gustave Eiffel, which people should know that name.
Yes, Andre Gustave Eiffel.
Okay.
Who is going to build the world's largest eyesore in Paris. That's what it was called
when
he started building it.
Right? Yeah.
Right. Then when he started that, when he got that project going, his critics called it the greatest eyesore ever built in Europe.
Yeah, you said it wasn't embraced at first.
It was not embraced. Now, a few years later, you couldn't take it away from him by force.
Right.
But it was such a bizarre idea because he was using a material people had an assumption about, but he was using it a drastically different way.
Right.
Because, all right, to give everybody a visual, look at the side piece of cardboard.
Yeah.
If you look at the cardboard, you got a flat layer and a flat layer. Then you kind of got this little wavy roof pattern going in between there.
Right.
And that wavy roof pattern is what gives cardboard its strength.
Yeah. Without making it weigh a ton.
Without making it weigh as much as that much paper.
Right.
If you look at like Roman cathedrals, you'll see these huge arching windows. Well, those windows were more than decorative. They were there to take away weight, to get rid of rock.
Yeah, otherwise you have a 50-ton, wall or whatever.
So now here we have these three crazy guys sitting in France playing with this idea that somehow or another we could, using copper and steel, mold this 10-story tall statue.
Can I? And here's another. This is the other part that's fascinating to me, Allan. Okay, it's one thing. So this is broken up into 350 pieces, which and then it's assembled. Well, okay, if you were to break up a cube into 350 pieces, that would, the math on that would not be complicated. You make it, divide it, and then the thing that's fascinating to me, you talked about how they started with like a 4-foot sculpture of sculptor. I think they wound up getting up to about a 20-foot They worked out all the design details, and they wound up making a 20-foot statue, and that was going to be their template. And then they took these, you know that tool we brought in where you push it against it and it makes the shape. What is that called? It's doggone it. There's a tool for it, but
is it called a leather awl?
No, not that, Max. It's it's something that basically it recreates the shape. You push it against it.
It's a nail board.
Whatever. People are going to...
Well, in those days, they were using a nail board. And what you did was you kind of slit... It's kind of like the game at the Children's Museum.
That's what I'm saying. You put your hand in there, and it makes the exact shape.
It makes an exact print of that.
And then you scale this up. And so you say, okay, this is the exact dynamics of this one of 350 other pieces. Right. And then you scale... And then you make something 10 times bigger than that, and you sure hope it connects together when you're done.
Well, picture a piece of the gown or something. That would be easy.
Right.
Now, picture doing this to a hand.
Right. Well, even you're saying robes they have, the robe she's wearing, it's got folds, it's got all this stuff.
Oh, my gosh.
And somehow they got it to connect. But Allan, here's the other thing. This is something I did not know, and I was shocked to learn this. So we know that it's coated with copper. What I didn't realize is just how thin that copper is. That copper is... The thickness, it's less than the thickness of 2 pennies if you stack them together, which is what, like 2 millimeters? I mean, I don't even know. It's like an eighth of an inch. Right. It's about an eighth of an inch thick. But what that does is it makes it much lighter weight. So it's attached to some like straps on the inside. Then they connected it. But what that does is, think of what the statue's exposed to. You've got every kind of extreme weather, constant wind from the ocean.
Including hurricane force
winds. And it's got all sorts of flexibility. They said the arm alone can sway as much as, like, I think 5 to 12 inches or something structurally without hurting it. And if the robes are getting blown in the wind. So it's actually brilliant. It's lightweight and flexible, which would be, if that was not flexible, who knows? It may not be standing today. So I mean,
thank you to a guy with an idea, an artist with the vision to figure out how to create and shape this. And then I'm going to pick on Mr. Eiffel again and say he had sense enough to know that he could make steel lightweight enough to support this, but flexible enough not to get snapped, blown over, or broken.
Right. Now, here's my question.
And it's held up for, honestly, over 100 years.
Well, here's my question, Allan, because I have to double check. Was the Eiffel Tower going on at the same... Okay, so we had the World's Fair in 1893. This was dedicated in 1886. There's a 7-year gap. I feel like the World's Fair in Paris, was that 1890... Oh, gosh, what was it? 1889 or something like that? I guess
think that's
these
right
must have been
around
going
there.
on simultaneously. Maybe they saw what he was doing with that and said, okay, if he can handle that, he can definitely handle a 10-story building. So,
well, he had been building a lot of other things at the time. He was not unknown.
Yeah. Okay.
So, it's...
He was the go-to guy when you're talking about steel and everything.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about almost 1,000 feet of steel.
Right.
When you get to the Eiffel Tower and how it was designed.
Yeah. I want to say one more thing, too, Allan. Grover Cleveland. I was like, wait a minute. Okay. So in 1886, President Grover Cleveland dedicated the statue. Well, 7 years later, he's over at the World's Fair, Chicago World's Fair, which we talked about in 1893, flipping the light switch to 160,000 lights and seeing all that technical innovation. He lived through some interesting times. He had some pretty good gigs there, man.
Yeah. Well, when you think about the World's Fairs he got to see,
no
think
kidding.
about everything that was going on. The Eiffel Tower was officially unveiled at the 1889 World's Fair.
Right.
I wanted to make sure I got the date right.
Yeah.
So
obviously this was going on because, I mean, that's only 3 years.
Yeah,
so
it's
these
all
were
in the
going
middle
on
of this.
simultaneously.
All right, but here's the really frightening part. The Eiffel Tower only took 2 years to build.
Isn't that something? Imagine that. 2 years. In that
it was started in
technology.
1887.
Right.
And it was fully exhibited in 1889.
That's just shocking to me. I don't, man, it's like we said, the Industrial Revolution had a lot to do with just the attitude and failure is not an option.
And yes, people were paid to build this, but imagine the passion people had for getting these things done.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Alan, we haven't even talked about the base. So basically, France pay, we're not going to get into all the minutia, but basically the idea was they're going to build a statue, we're going to build a pedestal in the base. Right. And the base is interesting because it was placed on it. There's a star shape, which is sort of another rabbit hole you can go down. In the old days, some of the military installations, because this is an island, we should say.
Right. This was
a military. Island. This was to defend Navy interests and things like that.
Right.
They're star shaped, and the reason for that is because when you have a star shaped configuration, there's every part of the wall is defensible. We can do that. So anyway, we'll wrap up our discussion with that, and then we've got some other interesting stuff to talk about. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio here at News Talk 98.9 The Roar, Memphis. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
You may feel a slight sawing.
News Talk 98.9 The Roar of Memphis.
That threw me off a little bit, Alan. I don't really want to feel a slight sawing.
That's what happens if you give me power tools.
Absolutely. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass.
With the miter saw.
Exactly, working his saw. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And we invite you to go to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page, give us a like, check out all the action over there, and including the must-have item of the week, which has already been posted, and the great moments in building history. I posted a video all about the Statue of Liberty and how it was constructed. That's what we've been talking about today, Alan. We've been doing a deep dive on that, and man, you have to compress it though, Alan, because there's so much to talk about with the Statue of Liberty. We can't get to it, so we've been hitting some of the bullet points. One thing we didn't get to though is we said France basically made the statue and we made the pedestal, which is nothing to sneeze at. A 10-story tall pedestal. It was raised by crowdfunding, as you said, Alan. This wasn't just some government funded project.
Right.
This is basically. If you want this to be built, this is where you contribute. And they got some advertising people in there to promote what this was actually going to be and everything. And it took a while. It took like 2 years to raise the money,
Yeah, I mean, I'm just picturing when Richard Morris Hunt got the letter and said, you're an architect. We'd love you to build a pedestal that we can put a 10-story statue on.
Yeah.
And
that people are going to go inside. We forgot to mention that.
And
they had to construct this
human
safely
weight.
for people to go in and out.
And it's got to be, and we're going to put it on this little tiny island in the middle of the bay.
Right.
Good luck.
Yeah, have fun. Shifting lands and everything. So
could you see what this poor guy was reading this letter? And he had his first response had to be, "Are you crazy?"
Right.
And then his second response had to be, I think I can build that.
Well, that was the attitude back then, And then plus, at this point in history, this was going to be the tallest statue in the world.
Yes.
Also, what I wasn't sure of, today we have elevators in there, but, the elevator was a thing back then. Did they build this with an elevator in mind? Or because I know there's a spiral staircase that goes up through the middle, but...
Well, keep in mind, for the entire construction process, this was all manpower. This was all ropes, pulleys, lifts, and the stairs.
Yeah, okay.
So there wasn't a safe enough elevator at the time to actually put an elevator in it.
No, I was talking about for
immediately.
Just for the public to go in and observe it. I didn't know. I knew in the construction it was all scaffolding.
They didn't trust elevators quite yet.
Okay, so you were going to march up 10 flights of stairs.
You're trudging 20 stories up. Because keep in mind,
you
got
to
to enter the pedestal.
Right.
Then you got to go up 10 flights.
Right.
Then you go up another 10 flights inside the Statue of Liberty.
Mm-hmm. And it used to be that you could go all the way up to the torch, and because of safety reasons, and I think there was some kind of whatever issue, that arm is a lot of. It's probably not best to have the public going up and down that thing. So basically, you can go up to the crown. I wanted to say one other thing though, Alan. In terms of how much we showcase great lighting on this show. Mm-hmm. Well, it's one of the best lit items I've ever seen at night. I mean,
Right.
the way they have light coming out of the crown, and then the way they hit the statue with lighting, and it just looks great at night too. So I mean,
Well, and that was part of Hunt's challenge
Mm-hmm.
because his original instinct was to go back to the Middle East and go to the Lighthouse of Alexandria and build this edifice that the woman was going to basically stand on.
Yeah.
And then he had to kind of rethink it and go, all right, wait a minute. What is the actual visual focus? So this guy is in a boat
right.
out floating off of Bedloe Island with his imagination going, okay, how do I want the base to look? How is it going to face? How is liberty going to be represented as people basically, as you said personally, what's going to hit people as they come over the horizon and see this?
Well, and also 99% of the people looking at the Statue of Liberty are over in Manhattan, or they're over somewhere, they're at a distance. So
Right.
the light, I liked how you talked about he drew inspiration from a lighthouse, because that's, that's
Exactly.
the idea. You're supposed to be able to see it from a distance.
It's a beacon.
And so,
It is-
right, it's a beacon, exactly. So, and even the pedestal shape, that Lighthouse of Alexandria is probably going to be a future, great moment. I mean,
we'll
that
have to
thing
talk
is,
about that.
That's another thing.
Now
But-
he did scale it back to only about 87 feet tall
Right.
in his design and it took about 10 months to get the base construction done,
Mm-hmm.
just the foundation, because like you said, they did build it over a crumbling old military fort.
right.
But oddly, the fort kind of gave them the idea of the flexibility of being able to shift or move on all sides.
When you look
So
at it,
no matter
yeah.
what way the wind comes from,
Right.
the pedestal, because keep in mind, the pedestal has to stay up too.
Yeah, well, the thing is, when I look at it from above, Alan, you see that it's like the star shaped, and it almost looks like it's the concrete form. That, I mean, I know it's not, because it's hollow in the middle, and you
Right.
walk in and think, but it's just it forms sort of the base, you could say,
Yes.
in terms of that. But the pedestal itself is a brilliant construction. I think they said they used enough concrete in this to, I mean, it was one of the biggest concrete constructions, because this is before the Hoover Dam, of course.
Yes.
So,
this is well before that. So this was of a little bit surprising to them, because of as they got into the building on this, of course, they kind of realized the sheer scale of it. They started running out of budget.
well, it's all, yeah, there's money consideration. So, yeah.
Now here is one of the great twist of this. Pulitzer, as in Joseph Pulitzer from the Pulitzer Prize, kind of got behind it and started talking about it in the newspaper. Hey guys, we kind of need to get this done.
Right.
However, for what did they charge? Like a nickel or something?
It was something like you could go they had two fundraising efforts.
Yeah.
They had one, okay, when they finished the head and when they finished the torch, they started putting it on tour, and for like 50 cents you could go to the top of the torch and you can go to the and so I like that notion that it's
crowdfunded.
It's crowdfunded by people
It was
that want it.
awesome.
Yeah, it was really one of the first ones. And honestly, Alan, we could spend 2 hours doing this, so we have to, I guess, at some point wrap this up. But it's a great deep dive, and it just goes to show there's such an interesting intersection at this period. Where you've got the connections between the Eiffel Tower and things going on in America, and things that would influence our, the Ferris wheel and construction in our skyscrapers.
Yeah.
It's just really fascinating, and just that period in history is really interesting. So
the lessons learned from two artistic endeavors,
Right.
the Statue of Liberty and the Eiffel Tower, critically affected how we built the rest of the landscape, because these were I'm going to have to say literally game-changing lessons learned.
yeah,
Because the strength of an I-beam was actually greater than the strength of the beam of solid steel.
yeah,
The
which
how
is
we
interesting.
constructed, how we put these things together, how we welded and bolted, of a lot of the techniques that we still use now to build your house.
Absolutely. Well, I want to remind people, if you've got a suggestion or if you've got thoughts about our great moments in building history. This is sort of turning into one of my favorite segments, Allan. I'm not going to lie, because you learn a lot and it inspires you. And we'd love to hear from you. So you can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. You can call or text us any day of the week. You can even send pictures. If you've got suggestions for a great moments in building history project that we should look into, send us a message. We may go ahead and do that. So, Allan, let's shift gears. This is I'm going to call this great moments in roofing history. Who's been at the he's been at the intersection of growing technology and at the cutting edge when it comes to roofing systems. Our good buddy, Jay Hill from Big M Roofing and Remodeling. I never feel like I transition perfectly into these, but by calling attention to it, I'm making it even worse. But
it's
whatever.
I will freely say getting a brand new architectural roof these days, especially in all this heat and everything, is a great idea.
Well, Allan, what it's funny because when we're talking about the Statue of Liberty being the way that it's a thin layer and yet it of copper and everything, and it's got flexibility and it's made to hold up against the weather. It did remind me of some of these roofing systems that Jay Hill deals with. And of course, if you have any roofing issues, that's nothing to play games with. You need competent experts on this.
Yes, you do.
The brilliant thing about Jay, in addition to being a GAF Master Elite installer, 5 stars with Good Housekeeping and the Better Business Bureau, the craftsmanship's not the problem. He's on top of it. Yep. He is a great craftsman, and so is his entire team. The brilliance with Jay though is the whole thing of him being a former insurance agent, and he really sinks his teeth into it. It's not like he said, I was an insurance agent and I remember how he did it in those days. No, Jay not only knows the protocols, he keeps up with all of the latest developments. He's got relationships with these other adjusters, and so he knows the business backwards and forwards. And so if you have any issues with your roofing system that may be covered by your homeowner's insurance, that's why we have homeowners insurance. Yes. Jay is the guy to help you navigate that, and man, it is exciting when you're dreading a project like that, and suddenly you talk to Jay, and it's like, no, we've got a solution here, and this solution is actually in your budget, and this solution could be implemented in the next 2 weeks. We can get you a roof. So you've been there, Allan. You and I have both had our roofs replaced by Jay Hill. So he's a great guy, and really all of the consultations are free. So there's really no reason to not call him. And of course, with his remodeling work, he's on the cutting edge with that too. So get in touch with our buddy Jay. You can call him directly at 901-484-5645 or go to bigmroofingandremodeling.com. All right, Allan, we're kind of doing today's show in a little bit of reverse order because we got our buddy Larry Brown coming up shortly. So, Allan, it's time to get to our must-have item of the week.
Okay.
Now, I've already posted this, friends, over on Facebook, but tell people what I'm holding up, Allan.
He is holding up a tape measure.
Oh, not just any tape measure, Allan.
Oh, the look in his eye.
Tell us what type of tape measure.
Oh, you actually have your metric tape measure there.
Okay, now, folks, I am as American. I bleed red, white, and blue. And I'll be honest, Allan, growing up, I was a little resistant to the whole. I remember learning about metric, and I'm like, hey, I'm an American. Tell me what this is in inches and feet and yards and things like that. However, I'm not going to lie. As I get older, math is not my favorite thing. When you're dividing, so math, I'm looking at this. It's got millimeters and centimeters, and it's basically divided by 100.
Yes, everything is a factor of 10.
It's much. I'll be honest. It's much easier in my brain to go, half of 50 is 25, half of 100, so the metric tape measure sometimes is very handy, especially for certain precision things. I know with when I was doing metalworking, we did everything in millimeters.
Right.
I don't think we did inches or anything.
No.
When I was doing tool and die work a little bit.
Right.
So, but I really enjoy this, and also it does give you once in a while. What I'll do is I'll take this. I'll measure something in millimeters, and then I measure it in inches and feet. And it kind of just helps you get your head around because don't really is a meter longer than a meter is shorter than a yard, right?
They're close, but it is just a little shorter.
And a kilometer is how much to a mile? That's shorter.
It's like
half.
2.3 kilometers to a mile.
Okay. So, I mean, whatever. It helps you get, because, I mean, and the truth is, this is how they measure around the world. We already have tools in millimeters, Allan.
Right.
So,
well, it's just kind of like you accepting the fact that batteries work.
right.
You got a battery powered lawnmower.
Oh, yeah.
Congratulations.
I finally came around.
Yeah. Welcome to a simple, accurate measuring system.
Right.
And once you and as I like to tell everybody, once you begin thinking in those terms, it's just like, okay, it's a millimeter. Got it. A millimeter becomes a centimeter. A centimeter becomes a meter.
Right.
Once you kind of get a few basics, it's kind of like learning somebody else's exchange rate.
Yeah. Well, and Allan, as we become let's face it, okay, today you order something off of eBay or off the
Right.
internet, you don't know what country it might be coming from. You don't know it really kind of behooves us. We're way more interconnected with the world today, so why not understand their units of measurement so you have a better grasp on how they all work?
The big thing, you order something these days, you don't know how many countries were involved in making that one item.
Right. Yeah. And our machinery, car thing, it's funny because I have an American vehicle. I have a Chevy, and yet even on the Chevy, some of the components are in millimeters. Some of the nuts and bolts are millimeters. So.
Well, it's just an easier, more uniform way of keeping the math standard.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. I enjoy the fact that now here's the real trick. Everybody on the job site needs to be using the same set of measures.
Well, you don't want one guy going, okay, give me,
right.
2.5 inches of that and give me, 50 millimeters of the other.
Everybody needs to be using the same tape measure.
Yeah.
However, as I tell everybody, I use a Wave keyboard at home. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who've never seen a Wave keyboard, it looks like you left it in the sun too long and it warped.
So you use those? I've seen those things. I can't get my head around that. The ergonomic.
All right, let me explain. The first week I had it, I'm a big guy. I'll freely admit I am not tiny.
Right.
And I sit down at an average little bitty keyboard, and I feel like a bear riding a tricycle.
Okay.
All right, because I got to bring my hands way, way up in front of me and way out in front. And
you do a lot more computer.
I do a lot more than
we do. Yeah.
When I got a Wave keyboard and suddenly my hands could sit in the proper position, but now the keys have moved.
In other words, everything's sort of spread out and it's sort of like a boomerang shape.
It is. And the first week I had it, I hated it.
Mm-hmm.
I was ready to throw that thing in the trash. The second week I had it, I would begrudgingly admit it wasn't bad. By the third week, I would whoop you for touching my keyboard. And that is the same thing with your tape measure.
Allan, I didn't expect the conversation to go this way, but you just reminded me, we might have to bring in sometime on Tool Talk the psychological component of all this, because what you just said, you were resistant to it. It's new.
Even though I bought it, and I knew it was good for me, I hated it.
I think a lot of us are that. What I felt, you've heard me talk about my drill, Old Blue.
You love your
I've
drill.
dropped that thing off the roof. I've had, and it still keeps ticking. I've had that drill for 20 years. So to me, buying a battery-powered drill seemed like a betrayal.
You were
to
cheating
Old
on your
Blue.
drill.
Yeah, and I was so resistant. And I got to be honest, now that I've got a lot of these rechargeable battery tools, I mean, they are better. They're handier. Not all of them are. I mean, mostly. The torque is improved. They do the job that I need, and I'm like, why was I so resistant to this? It's weird. The psychology
Legacy
in craftsmanship really is
legacy
sort of
thinking.
Yeah.
Now, when you do try this, and again, people are going to freak out when they get the metric tape measure and they go, "Oh Jesus, look at all these little bitty dots and dashes," and that. Actually, it's a whole lot easier to figure out 10 millimeters than it is to go 5/8.
Yeah, it is. Sometimes
it is.
But like you said, everybody's got to talk the same language. So,
but everybody's got it. Now, what's going to happen is I always tell everybody the conversion process takes 3 weeks. Week number 1, you're going to hate it. It's terrible. This was the worst idea you ever had. Week number 2, you're going to start getting used to it. And by week number 3, you're going to start thinking in it.
Well,
so whether somebody gives you inches or somebody gives you centimeters won't make any difference.
Well, I'm not in any rush to replace my. I like both. Mostly, this is just a way to just put more tools in your arsenal, so you've got more resources. So it's not one replacing the other; it's just expanding.
Right.
So how do you like that? So all right, now pretty interesting discussion. But we've got one more thing to get to before the bottom of the hour here,
okay,
Allan.
what are we going to get to now?
Let's talk a little science.
Hail science!
Well, Allan, you texted me, and actually, I think later in the show we might have 2 side segments.
Yeah.
When we start talking about nature inclusive architecture. But right now, you sent me a quick thing about hats made of mycelium, which is basically mushrooms. Hats made of a bio. We've talked about this. Once we can crack the nut of maybe making some plastics and some other fabrics out of biodegradable materials, that could really go a long way in solving some of our issues with pollution and we don't want a giant plastic thing out in the ocean. And you said now they're making hats and some different clothing items out of mycelium.
We're going to talk about a company called MycoWorks.
Okay.
They were founded in 2013 by an artist named Philip Ross, and he was kind of he's been doing sculptures and furniture out of organic materials like mycelium since the 90s.
Okay. Really?
Wang,
the 90s?
Yeah. Sophia Wang was getting her PhD at Berkeley in poetry, had started a dance company, and then just decided that, well, all right, I'll join the board and help you open a biotech company.
Huh.
Smart lady.
Something? Yeah.
Smart lady. So here's what they did. They began looking at how, all right, now mycelium is just basically, if you think about it, is the fuzzy stuff under the mushrooms.
Okay, that's like a little. They're real straight lines or something, and it's sort of like little fins or something.
Right,
yeah.
And the mushroom is actually the fruit.
Right.
So
because underneath the ground is where all the action's going. That's the huge growth. But
that's the mycelium, more or less the roots. So they have actually started growing sheets of this stuff, processing it like it was leather, and stamping out. And I got to tell you, if you're looking at these things, these are some pretty hot looking hats and furniture.
They can grow just just that part of it.
Well, that's the part that grows. Just don't let it bloom.
Okay, I didn't, because you're making me think of like people that just want to eat the tops off of muffins, like just the muffin top. But you're talking about.
I'm talking about just the muffin bottoms.
So you're talking about you just want to grow that, and
so before it blooms, the mycelium makes this wonderful carpet, and that carpet is what they're harvesting and processing without the mushrooms.
Is it proper to think of this in the way you would think of leather? Because obviously you can't sweat or wash it and have it dissolve or something like that. So it's biodegradable, but not.
It is treated.
It's a little bit hardy.
Well, here's the great thing: because of the material, it is actually treated and designed like leather and will wear like leather.
Because I think that's the part that we were trying to get our head around. Is like, okay, well, and plus the cows are going to love this. If leather starts getting replaced for, I know you like to use the whole cow anyway, but still.
But I like what one of their designers said. They said cows only grow in certain shapes.
I think this is very interesting.
We can grow this stuff in any shape we want. So we're talking anything from furniture to fashion.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. This is cool stuff today. I'm digging where the conversation's going. Hopefully, our buddy Larry Brown is waiting outside. I got to go let him in.
All right.
Hour 1 of Tool Talk Radio is in the can, but Hour 2 is coming up, folks. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
And welcome to Hour 2 of Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from Dark Oak Media, our pal Max over there behind the glass, and the man himself, Larry Brown from Brown Refrigeration. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And, of course, we invite you to go to the it's almost mission critical, you could say, to go to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page, Alan. It's a wealth of resources. Among other things, you can listen to our past shows, which is
That's
always
true.
helpful. You link all the past shows both on Spotify and YouTube and everything. It's sort of a one-stop shop.
It is indeed. Just go to Facebook and look up Tool Talk Radio, and there we are.
Well, we've been in the middle of record temperatures, really all around the world, but here in the Mid-South, I think they said this is the hottest it's been for about 40 years. And Larry finally made it in. He crawled in here on his hands and knees. He's unshaven. He's
right.
sleep deprived and busy. But it's good to have you back, my friend.
Well, it's good to be here. So, it's been very challenging. Let's put it that way. For the last month,
The master of understatement.
it has been super hot and super humid, and we have been super busy. So, it's probably one of the hottest summers we've had, and I don't know.
Since they said like 1980. Yeah.
Well, and I'm going to date myself, but I was doing heating and air conditioning work in 1980, so that was the hottest year in Memphis. I think 10, 11, and 12 were really hot also.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be right up there in the mix of the top 5. So, it's all over the world.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when you see England, which, you always think that's kind of a cool place, cooler temperatures, and it's 100 plus.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And they said only 5% of the population has air conditioning. I mean, they don't need that. So, but I will say this, Alan, Larry was alert enough to text us a correction. We were talking about meters and millimeters and everything. And we said, Allan said erroneously that a meter is shorter than a yard. Larry, you said it's actually longer than a yard.
Longer.
Yes, that's correct.
39.37 inches. That's
about 3 inches longer,
Okay, so we don't want to give out erroneous information.
Nope.
Far be it from us to give out bad information.
Try to be as accurate as we can.
If you're going to convert them over to the metric system, you need to do it accurately, right?
Well, I'm not trying to convert it. Like I said, Larry, I'm as American as apple pie, so I'm all about inches and yards and stuff. But it's not a bad idea to know how to work with millimeters too. So, hey, Larry, I wanted to ask you something, man. I did a deep dive in honor of your visit today. I was on YouTube and I was looking up all about how air conditioners are built. Particularly Train posted a really cool video because we know you deal with Train products, and then also how they work. And after about an hour, I still didn't really understand any of it. I got to be honest. I was comparing you guys to. I was thinking about there's chemistry involved. There's science. There's physics. The HVAC technicians and the work you do. You guys are almost like surgeons. Honestly, I'm impressed, sir. You're much smarter than I am.
It's a pretty difficult field to be in because we're dealing with a lot of different items in there. There's electricity. There's mechanics. There is a certain amount of chemistry or thermodynamics is what it's more like. The transfer of heat. Lots of things going on in a heating and air conditioning system. So you gotta really know what's going on, and to get it to work right, you got to be well trained to know exactly what to do and how to charge the system and put the right amount of refrigerant, or most people know it as Freon. So it's pretty difficult, but it's something I've done all my life. My dad was in the heating and air conditioning business, so
I didn't know that.
He was I started doing this when I was like 12 years old. So, if your parents own a company, you can use your kids for labor, and it's not against the law. So it's like child labor, right? So. No, seriously, I did start young and have been doing it all my life. So
wait, so your dad was there at the birth of not the birth, but he was there at the early because the birth of air conditioning goes back to about 19.
I don't think his dad was there in 1840.
No, what I'm saying is air conditioning in the home where it was more or less mainstream, like window units. Didn't it start with window units, Larry?
It did,
and they were expensive.
They were really expensive. That was in the 50s,
right?
When window units were coming into popularity, and people would buy a window unit and it would be like 500 pounds, and it'd be like this huge piece of
500 pounds. I didn't know
500
that.
pounds.
How do you put that in your window?
A lot, several people. Okay, and half of it hung outside, and half
Right.
of it hung inside, and it had to be braced.
Yeah, it had the big metal braces under
that
it.
held it up, and they called them window shakers because they weren't very. They were shake. There was a lot of vibration,
Right.
from the old compressors, and that's what they called them, window shakers.
Oh, yeah, I remember
They
those all
virtually
over
just
South Houston.
to shake the house, and everybody now knows window unit's kind of like a little small thing that one person can carry and stick in the window and plug it into the wall, and it's going, and that they do work really well, and they are very much more compact. But yeah, back in the 50s, they were 400 or 500 pounds a piece.
You know what you remind me of, Larry? Because let's face it, we grew up before we can remember a world before cell phones, before the laptop computer or whatever. But our kids today, that's just part of they're 4 years old and they understand an iPad and they understand
Right.
And it's sort of in your blood. It sounds like that's what HVAC has been for you. Like maybe that's why you grasp it because you grasp it at a young age. So
Well, it's a
was more
possibility.
instinctual.
Possibility. So it was kind of, excuse me. It was kind of, it wasn't voluntarily. It was kind of forced on me. Okay, so no, seriously, my dad would take me out with him during the summer. My mom would get tired of me being around the house, so it'd be like, you're going with your dad to work today. So,
Yeah.
And at first, it was really boring, and I didn't know what was going on. But after a while, I started catching on. And he would let me do this or do that. It was, so that's how I got started. And
pretty
here
cool,
I am.
man. Yeah.
And first time he broke out that torch, you had the coolest dad ever.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
So it was mostly at first holding the flashlight and go get a tool, go get a screwdriver, or go get a hammer, and I got more and more interested in it. Then he would let me do more and more. So, and that's how I got started. So here I am now.
One thing I will say, Larry, in my deep dive on YouTube, looking at how air conditioners are made and how they function, this is we're always about having people be self-sufficient and try to fix things on their own. With the exception of changing the air filter and maybe adjusting the vents, you don't touch your air conditioner. If you don't just get in there with a hammer or a wrench and just start playing around with. I mean, this is a precision system. So.
Absolutely. There's lots of dangerous stuff in there.
Yeah.
You could get electrocuted
Right.
or a lot of other things. So, I highly recommend that nobody tries to fix their air conditioner themselves. I used to be back in the day, could work on cars pretty well. If I have a car problem, I'm taking it to the mechanic because
It's a whole different world
It's a whole
today.
different world. And it's the same thing with air conditioning now. Is that they're not user friendly as far as repairs go. Okay,
Right.
So don't try to work on it yourself because you'll probably end up costing yourself a lot of money when you mess up something, and we have to come out and fix it. And it's like, well, it was only this part, but you messed up these other three parts. So now it's a lot more. It's a lot more expensive to get it fixed. So yeah. But doing maintenance of like changing your filters and other things like that. Yeah, that's stuff homeowners can take care of. But I recommend get a maintenance agreement or contract with a company, us preferably.
Yeah.
And get us to come out every year and service it, and then you're gonna get in front of most breakdowns if you do that.
Well, Larry, we've encouraged people, as long as we've been talking about this, to think of your HVAC company as kind of, we all have relationships with our car mechanics because there's always ongoing maintenance and issues. It's really the same with your HVAC provider, right? I mean,
it really is. I mean, it's just like anything that you have. You want to, if you maintain it, it's going to work better. It's going to last longer. You're going to have less problems out of it. So, spend a little bit of money on the front end, getting it maintained. It's going to save you a lot on the back, on the repairs. And it's going to save you a lot on, your utilities costs too, because it's going to run more efficiently and it's going to use less energy and it's going to save you money.
Well, Larry, I wanted to ask you about that. So, what are you dealing with in Heat Wave 2022 here? Like, what is your life like right now? Because I don't envy you, sir.
Well,
I mean,
it's busy. I mean, we've got a lot of good people, a lot of good, partners, employees, associates that we work with that are out there in the trenches every day, and I applaud them. They're we couldn't do it without them. It's very challenging trying to get everybody attended to as quickly as possible. One thing we're having a huge problem with is supply chain issues.
right.
Not pre-pandemic. If we needed a part or a unit, they were pretty readily available. They're not so readily available now. So you can't just always go and pick up an air conditioner or a part. They're just shortages.
Yeah.
So, if you're having problems with your air conditioner or try to get ahead of it as opposed to waiting till it breaks down. Try to be proactive more than reactive, because right now it's just, if you need a part, we may not be able to get it.
This is out of the box thinking, Larry, but you made me think of something. So, would it make sense? Okay, let's suppose my HVAC system is or let's suppose the air conditioning function of my HVAC system is working hunky dory, but I have concerns about my heating system. Is it actually, nobody's thinking about their heating system right now? Would this be a good time to get ahead of that so that when the winter comes, they're not calling you in the middle of January to deal with an issue?
Absolutely. I mean, we can always address something. If you're having problems, or you had problems with your furnace last year,
right?
And maybe it was at the end of the season, and you said, "Well, I'll just wait till next year." Well, try to get it attended to before we have that cold snap like we always do in Memphis, where it's 70 one day and then 20 the next,
right?
And you need your furnace and it doesn't work. So try to get ahead of those issues. If you're having problems with your HVAC, your air conditioner, or you think it's just kind of struggling, which a lot of them are, but if it's just unusually difficult to cool your home, it's best to call and get it addressed then, as opposed to when you come home from work one day and it's 95 degrees in your house and it's broken down. Okay,
yeah.
So it's just like anything. If you notice something in your automobile, it's best to try to get it addressed early, as opposed to when you broke down on the side of the interstate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same analogy. So,
so are you? It's almost. I'm picturing almost like a triage situation. Like, so right now you've got to almost prioritize things, right? I mean, if you get a call and you're, maybe somebody needs something, but the part isn't available. Well, maybe they have to go on the sidelines till somebody. I don't know. How do you navigate that? I guess scheduling is a whole new issue.
Well,
too.
scheduling is very difficult. So we've got a lot, some good ladies in the office that work very diligently and trying to get people on the schedule as quickly as possible. Obviously, if a part is bad and we need to get a part, if you only have one unit, sometimes we do have like a loaner unit. We could loan somebody, depending on the situation. It's usually like a window unit that they can maybe put in their bedroom, to where if you got a cool place to sleep, you can kind of work through it for a couple of days so we can get a part. Some folks have 3 or 4 units in their home, so maybe if one goes bad, it's not as critical as it would be if you only have one air conditioner.
They move upstairs if the downstairs one.
Yeah, something like that, right? I mean, you can work through it. So, but yeah, we do. We try to work with people as much as possible. Obviously, again, parts are difficult. So depending on the situation, we can't always get the part. And a lot of units now have special parts on them, specialty items that we can't just go down to the local supply house and buy a motor or XYZ part, because it just won't work on their particular situation.
Hey, Larry, how do people get in touch with Brown Refrigeration?
Well, you can give us a call at 901-362-1881, or you can reach us on the web at brownref.com. Check us out on Facebook, but usually the best way to get in touch with us is just give us a call.
Yeah, and your Facebook is a lot more interesting than people might imagine. It's they got a pretty active Facebook page.
We try to. I mean, obviously we're trying to post more, pertinent information on there. It's right now it's kind of difficult for us to keep up with all that stuff,
right?
Because we're concentrating on trying to take care of our customers, but it's Facebook is a good medium for us to contact with people and share information with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Larry, before we hit the break, I wanted to shift. I don't think we ever, I don't think we always spend enough time discussing the smart home system. And honestly, I have to imagine that the smart home technology it's evolving every year, right? I mean, it's not a static thing. There's always features being added, right? And I mean,
absolutely, absolutely. And one cool feature about the smart home technology is that we can actually, with your permission, we can link on to your system and monitor your HVAC unit remotely. Okay,
right.
Now we can't turn it on and off or anything like that, but we can monitor it. And if you're having a problem with it, it'll actually send us a notification and let us know. So there's been times that we would call customers and say, "Hey, your upstairs unit just sent us an email, said there's a problem with it."
That's pretty cool, honestly. I wish I had that for my car.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
I know your car.
Yeah.
That'd be like
I'd never
texting a
sleep.
family member. Yeah.
So
that's pretty cool because we talk about it. If for example, if you're at work, you don't need your house at 68 degrees. You can bump the temperature up.
Mm-hmm.
You can. And Larry, a few weeks ago, I was talking about a leak I had in my bathtub, and to be honest, I procrastinated. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
When I finally fixed it, actually, my utility bill, I discovered that I had spent I probably was wasting $40 a month on this stupid leak that I didn't fix. And when I fixed it, but if I were to look at that in terms of every hour, this is how much money this leak is costing me, or this is, being able to track this stuff would help me be more proactive. And I feel like with your HVAC system, it's the same thing. Like you said, I mean, if you've got an alert saying there's an issue with this unit up here, or maybe you could, cut your expenses by, taking this action or something. So
absolutely. Well, having a programmable thermostat is a great way to manage your utility costs. And obviously, some people say, "Well, I just turn my unit off when I leave to go to work, and I turn it on when I come home." Don't do that.
Oh, yeah.
You're leaving your home.
You just triggered Allan.
Yeah, you're leaving your home, just basically unclimatized all day. So, set it up to 80, maybe 82 during the day when nobody's there. Turn it on maybe an hour before you come home, something like that. Same thing in the winter. You can let it be 60, 55, whatever. If you have pets, I wouldn't do anything more than maybe 60, but like 55 if you don't have any pets, I think 55 would be fine. And then, about an hour before you come home, the air would, the heat would come on, warm your home up. You walk in, it's nice and warm. You're not heating or cooling your home all day while you're not there.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's called air conditioning. The thing I learned on this deep dive, Larry, this did make sense to me. They said Benjamin Franklin first discovered that if you remove humidity, that causes cooling, which to me, so it's a chemical react. Like that was my other question, Larry. So like if you're standing in front of a fan, it's cooling you off, but is part of that process because it's dehumidifying, right? Humidity sounds like it's a real factor with comfort.
With humans and with people. I mean, obviously temperature and humidity both need to be adjusted to make you comfortable. But when you stand in front of a fan and you're sweaty or whatever, you're perspiring, the evaporative effect is what cools you.
That's what's interesting to me.
When the moisture evaporates, it takes heat to do that. So it's taking heat away from your body.
Yeah, because it's drawing heat and it's drawing humidity out of your air. So you don't just turn your system off. I mean,
no, you want to keep your you want to keep your home, conditioned throughout the 365 days a year, but you don't have to keep it at 72 all day. You can raise the temperature or lower it depending on the season when you're not there, and then it will automatically turn on and get it back to your comfort zone before you get home.
Absolutely. Well, and when we come back, I also want to ask you about the Remy Halo. But real quick, before we hit the break, Larry, tell us again how to get in touch with Brown Refrigeration.
It's 901-362-1881, or you can check us out on the web at brownref.com.
Okay, cool. So we're gonna, if you've got any HVAC questions or comments, today's the day. The Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline. You can get us at 901-683-0989. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to continue our conversation with our good buddy Larry Brown.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
This is glue. Strong stuff.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
I mean, that's good to hear. I want my glue to be strong stuff. It's got to do its job.
Yeah.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com, our pal Max over there behind the glass, and the man himself, the man who keeps the lights on around here, Larry Brown from Brown Refrigeration, the sleep-deprived, the haggard, the man praying for the end of summer, working his Kadiddlehofer off. If you need to talk to Larry and find out about HVAC, if you have any HVAC issues, you can call us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline or text us. Call or text us at 901-683-0989. And, of course, we invite you to go to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page and check out all the action over there. Hey, Larry, in a minute, Allan has got a really interesting discussion, and we wanted your hot take on this. It's called nature-inclusive architecture. It really looks like it might be the wave of the future for urban design and everything. But before we hit that, I do want to mention the Remy Halo system, because really, isn't this becoming more or less? It's something I'm guessing everybody that's getting a new unit would take advantage of this. It's it's a really interesting technology.
It is super interesting technology. The Remy Halo is something we highly recommend everybody gets installed in their home. It provides the UV technology, which we've known for years that it kills viruses, bacteria, mold spores, all that kind of stuff. And then the Remy Halo takes it to the next level. It actually creates a gaseous hydrogen peroxide that will dispense through your home, and so it'll clean surfaces of counters and all that. So it helps reduce, mold, bacteria, viruses, all that. Throughout your home. So not only is it the air going through your HVAC unit, it's also, basically throughout your home. It is proven to kill the coronavirus, which, flu, influenza, a list of viruses goes on and on. So, in our times, we need something that's going to help control all this type of stuff. And then, we've got a lot of mold, bacteria, pollen. Memphis is like in the top 5 of the United States for pollen. If you don't believe it, look at your car in the spring. You'll see. These things are all stuff that we need to mitigate in our homes.
And Larry, our little catchphrase to remind people about the Remy Halo system, it doesn't just blow out clean air, it blows out air that cleans.
There you go. Very good.
You can use that, Larry, if you want.
I'll use that. You didn't trademark that. You didn't trademark that. So.
But tell us before we get to Allan's story one more time, how do people get in touch with Brown Refrigeration?
Well, you can give us a call, 901-362-1881. Or you can check us out on the web at brownref.com.
Hey, Larry, if they call, what are the chances they get to talk to Mrs. Brown? That's who everybody wants to meet.
Well, she's she had a little surgery about 2 weeks ago. She had to have a rotator cuff repair. So I think it's been 3 weeks now. But she's kind of getting back in the office, slowly but surely. So if you give her a call. She might be there. She usually works, she doesn't work on Fridays. So don't call on Friday if you want to talk to Mrs. Brown. She won't be there. So, but any other day she'll be there. Or you can, Jamie, great lady, been with us for years, and Jasmine too. So those are the three ladies that usually answer the phone. Any of them are great, can help you with any of your HVAC needs.
I will say this, Larry. When you call Brown Refrigeration, there's a certain sense you get put at ease. Like, you call some businesses and you wonder, well, for one thing, you might be put on hold for an hour or something. But you call Brown Refrigeration, suddenly you're like, okay, these people understand what I need. They're going to help me take care of the situation. So
absolutely. I mean, we want to answer the phone with a pleasant voice. We're not doing some kind of machine where you push one and push two. We're going to answer the phone, take care of your needs, and we're right here in Memphis. I'm born and raised here, native Memphian, so we all know exactly what we're all up against, and we're going to try to help you if at all possible. And so you can reach out to us anytime. Again, the number's 901-362-1881.
Perfect. Hey, Larry, we were eager to have you get in on this discussion, and we purposely saved it for the second hour because, Allan, we've got another science segment.
Hail science!
Although this is architecture, this is sort of wide-ranging, and I feel like there's implications in HVAC as well.
Any excuse to press the buttons.
That's all Max cares about. If he can push a button, he's happy.
It's a little bit of anti-critter wars meets science meets great events in architecture.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to start with basically two stories that are actually one. They're just different sides of the coin.
Okay.
One side of the coin is critters are bad.
Well,
Raccoons.
who says?
A raccoon dug a hole through my roof. Pigeons poop all over buildings. And so most of our history has been critters are bad. Keep the critters away from your building.
And PETA, you can send that hate mail to.
I'm about to redeem all this, but this has been the generalized approach forever. You don't want vines.
Don't speak for me, Allan.
You don't want vines growing on your house because they eat the wood. You don't want. So this has been the approach of all the way up to a point where places in New York that have pigeon problems, the pigeon poop is very acidic. It's literally eating the sides of the building. So there is a company called Birdmaster that is honestly wrapping buildings in a screen to keep the critters off.
Birdmaster.
Called Birdmaster.
Sounds like a superhero.
It does. Now, I say all of that to go to Amsterdam, where we're going to completely flip the script.
Okay.
And what we're going to do now is take a look at that idea, because even in New York, they found out they were creating artificial canyons, and now stuff like peregrine falcons are making nests high up on top of buildings like they would have in a canyon.
So there's unintended consequences.
There's unintended benefits and consequences. So Amsterdam has really gotten behind eco-architecture.
Yeah.
And one of the things they've gotten into is a lot of sunlight.
Right.
We want a lot of natural lights. We're not using resources. We're not using electricity. Mm-hmm. They're using water management for temperature control. So here we have a ready source of cool water to use throughout the building in cooling situations. And now, as part of, of course, like a lot of growing cities, they have a little bit of a housing shortage.
Yeah.
So
everybody does. So
they're getting ready to start building a lot of new housing. And, let's face it, apartments are kind of a quick, easy way of getting people housed.
Right.
So here we go. We're going to build an 82-section apartment. It's going to be inside the city. And the big idea, though, is they're going to build the exterior of the building, as they put it, for their non-human residents.
Well, this says nature-inclusive architecture.
Yes.
So basically, Allan, the way I'm getting my head around this is, okay, when I build a house or an apartment, I want nature to stay outside, and I want to keep it at bay.
Right.
Where I live inside. Well, now they're sort of blurring the lines a little.
Here we
because
go.
At the other side of that, I don't want to just drive nature away. I mean, let's face it, if we have a city, we're taking land that once belonged to the animals and we're saying, get lost, we're going to live here. So now we're trying to work in harmony. Is that kind of the idea?
All right. Well, let's start with, they have a defunct wastewater treatment plant.
Okay.
So, all right, well, like here in Memphis, we had a giant concrete structure that had been abandoned for years and has been renovated through many years. You and I watched them
right
do
by
this.
downtown, right? Yeah.
And, we even our famous director buddy here in town lives there.
Right. Yeah.
So,
the Sears Crosstown building.
Welcome
Right. Yeah.
to the Crosstown project, where we took an old derelict building and turned it into something fabulous.
Right.
Well, they got a big wastewater plant, and they went, you know what? Let's not tear that down. That is a lot of really good concrete. That's really built good and solid. But let's do something different.
This is a repurposing situation?
They are repurposing this building into apartments, and they're repurposing the exterior of it, because I'm going to look at Larry and go, plants absorb solar energy, don't they?
Yes.
So if you had plenty of greenery around this huge concrete structure, it wouldn't be absorbing as much heat. Therefore, it would take less to cool it.
Okay, wait. So you got vines. We always caution about vines growing up the side. However, if you had if the vines are growing up on a fence that's 3 feet away from your building, it's shielding you from the heat.
All right, Joe, you are diving in completely.
And we need plants for oxygen, right?
We need the plants.
Right, so.
We need this. The wastewater treatment plant already has a water supply system built into the building.
Yeah.
So why not go ahead and unstagnate it, put in a little recirculating pump? It could be solar powered. And why not have fish? Why not have a feature? I can think of one hotel in San Antonio, Texas, that totally embraced the fact that water was going to flow through their property.
Yeah.
And so what they ended up doing was building an observation area over this little tributary. And now, if you're a fisherman, it makes you a little crazy, because there are some truly magnificent brown trout living in the hotel. And you can see them. They're like looking at you, waving at you from the lobby.
Hotel.
So, being a fishing person myself, you're like, yeah, come outside the hotel and we'll talk.
Right.
So here we go. So we are Joe, this is just one of these great ideas where somebody went, let's just go all the way with this.
I want to say one thing about this, Allan, because here's one thing. Because, okay, I don't know, Larry, I was already making a mental checklist of there's pros, but there's also a lot of cons with this. But one thing they did say in this article, and I suppose we should link this article, Allan, and put it on the Tool Talk Facebook page. They said they're diving deep into this, and they're gonna just examine it for a year to find ideas they can improve on. So they're not saying this is the be all end all. This is more or less a science experiment. So I appreciate that. They're not saying this is how it's going to be, because I could see mosquitoes becoming an issue. I could see fungus, mold. I could see air quality becoming, So.
Well, there as we have always said, there are unintended benefits and unintended consequences of every idea you try.
Yeah.
But this is kind of an old idea from history, where you had, especially in British architecture, you incorporated the local flora and fauna in what you were doing.
Yeah.
And it worked well for thousands of years. It's only when we kind of got antiseptic in the last 100 years. And now we're moving back. And this time, instead of fighting nature, we are actually looking for ways of embracing it and going, all right, what could we grow on the roof? What should be growing on the roof?
Right.
If we have moving water, we don't have mosquitoes. So if we have moving water and we have livestock in the water eating the critters, then you're not making mosquitoes. You're actually getting rid of them. If you are looking at, people usually like to have garden on their terrace. All right, well, let's design the terraces to be gardened on.
Right.
So this project is really trying to outreach, and as you said, they're actually projecting themselves kind of as an ongoing experiment.
Right.
So we're going to try this, and if this particular aspect doesn't work that big, no big deal. We can try the next idea.
Well, Larry, I'm curious, if you were called in to be the HVAC, because you do HVAC for commercial properties as well.
Oh,
and
yeah.
everything.
Mhm.
What would be your concerns, or what would be the opportunities here? You think because I mean, I could see the pros and cons on both sides. So.
Well, there's so many variables there. You'd have to look at it in a totality, but obviously, the masonry structure, you'd have basically, it's a double-edged sword, because in the summer it does absorb a lot of energy, excess energy, but in the winter, you absorb that energy. It helps heat the building.
Right.
So, if you shade it or put some kind of plants up there where it can't get that energy in the winter, you're going to kind of hurt yourself, because
Well,
you're
the
not able
vines
to
would
heat.
die back in the winter.
Well, you got a point. So, it would have to be like very orchestrated type thing. So, gardens on the roof, we're seeing that more and more. We've done several buildings that they had that type of, like a garden or grass on the roof, and it provides some type of shade for the roof, so it doesn't, absorb solar energy. So, there's lots of things you can do, be creative. But again, you have to realize that for everything you do, there's going to be a pros and cons.
Yeah, I was
Right.
picturing the fall when all the leaves are falling off. Because
Yeah.
it's one thing to
Yeah.
have the leaves fall off your tree into your yard. What happens if you have a vine that's 10 stories tall and they're all shedding at once? And, it would have to really be regulated as far as what plants would work. But I guess if you did have leaves that shed, then like you said, Larry, and the winter comes, you've got the sun pouring through it's the vines, and it's actually hitting the building again.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, it's just like shade trees we've had in the South for hundreds of years. People put up
Right.
nice big shade trees around their homes. So in the summer, it nice canopy keeps the shade off, the sun off, makes it cooler. The winter, those leaves are gone. Now you're getting the sun. So
Well, we have a well-known hotel right here in Memphis with a duck pond in the lobby.
Oh, yeah.
We have another well-known hotel here in Memphis with a pond built around it.
Let me ask you something, Allan.
So-
and this is more because you probably know about this stuff, but okay, when I look back at I think one of the examples was like London in the early 1800s or something. Right when we start getting into in industry, you had smokestacks, you had pollution, you have stuff dumping garbage into the Thames, Thames River. I didn't see the conversation was all about who's going to be the most powerful business, it was all about cranking out stuff and the consequences of that pollution and things. I feel like today, one of the reasons I'm optimistic is I feel like we're having the right conversations. Like this building concept, it's going to take a while to get perfected, but at least it's maybe a step in the right direction. Just like the way we're trying to clean up the air. Like I said, when I went to San Diego, just in the time I was gone, over 20 years, the air was noticeably cleaner, probably because of carbon emissions and things like that. So I feel like this is an interesting, it's going the right way. There's going to be problems, but this architecture, I think it's a very interesting idea. So,
And this is not the only one going on in Amsterdam. There are any number of other eco-friendly ideas being promoted.
Right.
There's a lot of office buildings that are trying to have carbon-neutral footprints. They're trying to use a lot of solar. They're trying to use wind. They're trying to use alternatives to how we've been doing things.
Right.
And one of the things I'm looking at is this also has a certain aesthetic, depending upon how well. I'm going to pick on our Statue of Liberty conversation earlier.
Yeah.
Because a lot of thought was put into how this was going to look when you saw it.
Right.
So the same thing is happening here. If you're actually thinking of landscaping, not as just the dirt around the bottom of the building, but if you were actually thinking about landscaping and dressing the building all the way to the top.
Right.
Depending upon what you planted and what grows well, and, a lot's going to depend on what works in that particular environment. But you could actually get pretty spectacular. Could you imagine your building blooming in the spring?
Well, that's what I'm saying, depending on what you put on there. Because, like, we had a dogwood tree, Larry, and it was only about a month, but, man, it looked great for about a month.
This kind of provoked a conversation for me. There's a story that Joe did a while back, and he doesn't necessarily think the best of it, but there's an aspect in there that I really enjoyed. He said that Allan was talking about the idea of literally seeing your building bloom. It made me think about how Joe said in this story that when technology becomes more evolved, it becomes more organic looking.
It'll probably
a
start
little bit
looking
more akin to
more
nature.
like nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like we won't be using necessarily always straight lines. We might use curves that look more like natural structures. The more, it does look more organic, I think. That's true.
Well, and I also like the fact that much like some of the buildings they've done here in the Mid-South, this is a reclamation.
Right.
This was, a wastewater treatment plant is an incredibly well-built structure. Mm-hmm. And this is like almost repurposing a dam or something like that. I mean, this is a big and probably ugly building without anything on it. This is just a big concrete edifice. And I'm enjoying the fact that the architects and the landscape people and the artists involved in this are looking at it going, we could really turn this into something different.
Okay, Larry, what is the part? There's a part of Tennessee that it's Natchez Trace, right?
Right.
They say if you go through there in the fall, it's like, the way that you got red and yellow. You got
I
all
will
the
tell you, it
trees
is unbelievably spectacular.
Right.
Okay, and then we also, Allan, we always talk about lighting.
Yes.
I'm just picturing a skyscraper with foliage that's starting to turn in the fall with all that, and then you hit it with the right light.
Mm-hmm.
There's all sorts of design elements that would just bring a whole new look to a city. I mean, and it would be changing. So it's not just a static thing, like the Sears Tower in Chicago. It always looks like the Sears Tower because it's in the spring, it's going to look different than it is in the winter or in the summer or something. That's I don't know, man. I like this. I like the direction they're going with this.
Well, I'm going to be fascinated to follow up on this in a couple of years.
Yeah.
And go, all right, what happened? All right, the sparrow nest were a great idea. Probably not such a hot idea because we wound up with a wasp nest or something. It's going to take
some fine tuning for sure.
Right, it's going to take some stewardship. But I'm just excited to see, projects like our concourse here in Memphis.
Yeah.
We had a giant 1 million square foot edifice that was just this big blank spot in the middle of the city.
Right.
And now it's got everything from workshops to movie theaters to restaurants. You could spend weeks in there and never leave the building.
Yeah, you can actually, it's like its own little city.
It's like a little micro city.
We'll be following this story with great interest, Allan. This is pretty cool. But hey, Larry, before we get out of here, one more time, because, man, time. This is the time.
Fast.
How do people get in touch with you, though?
Well, you can give us a call, 901-362-1881, or you can reach us on the web at brownref.com. Just give us a call if we can help you with any of your heating and air conditioning needs.
Yeah, and give our best to Mrs. Brown. I didn't know she went through surgery. I was going to start teasing her, but I guess I can't do that when she's,
Well,
whatever.
she wants to come on the show, but she felt like maybe she needed to be,
she doesn't want to come here. Larry, we're never going to get her here. She
you hear
knows
that
better.
now. It's a challenge, right? So she's listening, so that's a challenge. Maybe next time I come, I'm going to encourage her to come with me.
Flood the phone lines, 362-1881, and demand that Mrs. Brown comes on Tool Talk
exactly
Radio.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, you've been listening to another wide-ranging and dynamic episode of Tool Talk Radio, but it's time to get out of here. So on behalf of my buddy Allan Gilbreth, our pal Max over there behind the glass, and Larry Brown, I'm Joe Thorderson. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.